So this afternoon, I wanted to talk a little bit about ways to stop arguing with someone in particular, significant other, partner, what have you, someone that you're around kind of all the time. So I think one of the first things that can be incredibly helpful is to set yourself and your partner up for success in the argument, in the disagreement, in the conversation. So a couple things to keep in mind with that is, what's the timing of it? Are you both rushing in and out of the door, or are you going from one thing to another? That's probably not a good time to have an important discussion. And instead, make sure there's enough time to talk about what needs to be talked about, and that it's also the right time. So what I mean by that too is, if you're not a morning person, don't schedule it during the morning. If they're not a night person, don't schedule it at night. Try and pick a time where you're both at your best. And with that, also wait until you're both in a good mood. And I know that might sound kind of backwards. Well, things are going well now. Why do I want to talk about something difficult? But that's why you should have that conversation then. I mean, how does it go when you're already arguing with someone, when you bring up something else? It's just like gas on a fire, right? So instead, wait until you're both in a good mood and then try and have that conversation as well. And a couple other things that might help is that as you set up the conversation for success, is you're in a relationship with a person for a reason, right? So remember some of the positives of the relationship and try and focus on those throughout the conversation, throughout the discussion. Which brings me to my second point. Know what the goal of that conversation is from the get-go. We all have a reason for why we talk to someone, right? Especially if it's a big conversation, then there's a reason that you're having that with them. So make sure you know what you want to get out of the conversation and what a good outcome is going to be. And that can vary from situation to situation, person to person. And it can be very big and can be very small and specific. It can be everything from, hey, I want us to have a great relationship. Good. That's a great goal to have. That's also long-term. Short-term goal could be as simple as, hey, I just need to know that they hear the impact that they had to me. Or it might be that we need to start getting out of the house on time, or dishes need to get done. Whatever that looks like, know what the objective for the conversation is. And that's really important because that can help steer the conversation in a helpful and productive direction. It can help prevent things from getting off topic one way or another and just keep you focused on, here's why I'm even having that conversation to begin with. So the third thing, there's 4 pieces to that. There are 4 things that in the middle of a conversation can derail a conversation very quickly. The first one is criticism. So when there's something difficult that needs to be said, or your partner did something that maybe upset you, be very careful to not say in a way that sounds like you're criticizing them. One of the things that can help with that is to use a lot of I statements. Make it more about the impact that it had to you. The second thing is to be very careful and aware of defensiveness. When we get criticized, it can be very natural to want to just defend. Oh no, I didn't do that. Here's why I did what I did. But then what's the other person going to do? It's going to make them feel like they're not being heard. So instead, you want to be very careful to set that immediate reaction aside and try and understand where they're coming from. The other 2 things that can really interrupt an argument or really get in the way. One is feeling contempt for the other person. Just whatever they're saying, it really doesn't matter. Just they can't do anything right. Well, that's not the case. I mean, you're in a relationship with them for a reason, right? And there's some positive aspect of them. But when they feel like they can't do anything right, that can make them kind of want to give up, like, why should they keep trying? And then that leads to the 4th thing, stonewalling. Intentionally not engaging in the conversation or even changing the topic intentionally to avoid talking about what needs to happen. Any one of those 4 can just absolutely shut down a productive conversation. So some of the things that can help avoid that is to, one, be very intentional. If you know you tend to do one or a couple of them, then when you go into a difficult conversation, be very intentional with avoiding them. And the fourth thing that I want to talk about today that ties into this is find ways to turn towards the other person and to look for a workable solution. And by that, I mean find ways to let the other person know that you're listening to them, that you care about them, even that you're willing to work with them. And with that, look for a solution that's going to work for both of you. So what that could look like, and to recap, is that you want to set the conversation up for success. Make sure it's a good time, you're both in a good mood, right? And also know what a good outcome is going to be. So go into the conversation in a positive way. Remember the goals that you have, that you want the relationship to last, that you want this particular thing to be resolved, and here's what you're okay with as far as an outcome. Be careful to avoid the contempt, stonewalling, criticism, or defensiveness. And look for ways to meet what your partner needs in that conversation as well. And that's not to say that you give up things that are really important to you. But ideally, if you do give a little bit, you're going to get a lot more in return. Just like if they give a little bit, that they're going to get a lot more in return. And so the end result is you both get what you need in a very effective way. A lot of times there can be difficulty in starting these conversations. Hey, everything's going great. How do I jump in? A format for that that works really well is when I feel I need. Basically, talking about when, what is the context of the event? And not, again, not criticizing, not defending, just here's the context. And then I feel, how does that impact you? And then I need, what do you need as a result from that? And then two other things I'll mention that can be very helpful in preventing and minimizing arguments. One is having good communication, and the other is taking ownership for your side of that conversation.